What's up, y'all? It's Ron Petway, aka Waithoven. I want to try to come back and kind of check in with y'all and tell y'all what's been going on in this fucking journey that I'm on. I planned on making it a thing to do that, and these past several weeks have been so fucking insane that I actually had to write it down. Okay, so this is a short little story. Whenever I turned 25, I started chasing my calling from God, and over the next few years, I experienced a series of spiritual and supernatural events. But at 29, I started praying every night for strength and for my path to be carved out more clearly, and then the signs started to become more severe. I started finding random small creatures on my bed. A bird flew into my room and made itself comfortable. It stayed for an hour and then flew into the funeral pamphlet of my Aunt Mary Margaret, knocking it over. It flew up to my air unit and we locked eyes for a good several minutes. I felt a strange connection to it, like it was my friend, and I didn't want anything bad to happen to it. And then now as I'm getting closer to my goal and my purpose, I'm realizing, and I've actually found out that I'm under spiritual attack, as expected. Random sickness, depression, fatigue, discouragement, opposition and misunderstanding from my loved ones, feelings of isolation, difficulty focusing, and let alone financial struggles that I've become accustomed to. I told God that I was ready to go after His calling for me maybe a year or two ago. Every job that I've worked at after the age of 27 has casted me out one way or another. But I noticed a pattern as such that whenever I start a new job, managers start quitting and people start getting their hours cut, almost as if I'm being forced to not get comfortable. I had the biggest nosebleed of my life the morning that I got fired from my job at a convenience store that I had had in November. I'd been there for 3 months or so. I panicked because the woman I plan on marrying has a period disorder, and we've been struggling to pay for our medicine and food this past year, and she's been to the hospital a few times because of it. I called my best friend Travis and thankfully started working with him a couple days later. I just got fired from his job, which is my 17th job in 12 years, on December 27th, 2025. My best friend is the kitchen manager, and he told me that it was because of the way I carry myself, which is so confusing because I showed up early, was working 4 positions, and never got into an argument with anybody, and kept to myself most of the time like I've always done. I was eating dinner at my grandparents' house for Christmas when I got the news that I was fired and immediately went cold and lost my appetite. I suffered a sudden testosterone and dopamine deficiency attack whenever I was 26, and it caused 2 suicidal episodes. My mind was on a loop telling me to end my own life. and the darkest, most horrible feeling came over my body to where I didn't know what else to do but go downstairs and be with my mom. Needless to say, I fought endlessly with supplements and other things to fix my illness. The point of the story is, whenever I got fired from my job a couple weeks ago, the manager told me that my testosterone was a problem. I guess because of how aggressively I move in the kitchen and the fact that I'm really blunt and straightforward and assertive with management about the seriousness of me and my fiance's conditions. I went home and cried in my bed, feeling like I had been casted out from society for just being myself. Then on New Year's Eve, I prayed a little differently than I had before. I called out directly to the spirit realm and gave God and Jesus 100% control over my body and spirit, and told them to take me under their wing. My body shivers every time I say his name, Jesus Christ. And now I've never felt more calm and tranquil in my life. After I got done calling out to them, my body was vibrating, and I felt no more hate, malice, or any other negative hold over my spirit. Afterwards, I wrote the most beautiful song I've ever written, which concludes my project that I've been working on for a year and should be released in the coming days or weeks. My fiance woke up sick this morning, so I told her to go to the hospital. I hope everything's gonna be okay. She did end up being okay, thankfully. But it's getting wild. It's getting crazy. Whenever that bird flew into my room, I had just got done actually, getting, emotional in my bed because I felt so alone. I don't know why. I have a really good family and friends, and I just felt really lonely. And maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, my cat actually chased a fucking bird into my room. And the bird, flew around, going from my air unit to this dartboard over here, flying back and forth. And after a little bit, it made itself comfortable. And it started just walking around my room. And it stayed up here for an hour. And, so it would be walking around, flying here, walking over here. And eventually, it jumped up onto my piano. And then it jumped down into this black chair. And I was sitting in my bed just kind of watching it, and then it flew straight into this funeral pamphlet from my Aunt Mary Margaret, and it knocked it over. And so I yelled at it. I was like, "Hey, what the fuck are you doing?" And then it just flew back up onto my air unit. It just sat there. Sometimes it would chirp. But I just kind of let it be. And then I stood up and I looked at it, and it looked back at me. It was a little brown bird. I don't know what they're called, but it was a little brown bird, probably like yay big. And we locked eyes for a second. And I felt a weird connection to it. Almost like a comforting connection to it. Like it was my friend. And so it would just chill on the air unit, jump down, walk around, climb over here, get back down, walk over here. And I went downstairs to do something, and I came back upstairs and it was gone. And I don't know where it went, but it was just gone. And so I looked at the spiritual meaning behind that, and it basically said that something's telling me that it's gonna be okay, and that something's watching over me, and that maybe it was a good omen for, positive change and all that. And then shortly after, it was probably a couple days later, I was eating dinner with my grandparents at their house for Christmas. And I get a text from the fucking owner talking about I'm fired. No, I'd been doing a good job. I'd been working 4 positions in the restaurant, moving as fast as I can, and all that. And then he tried to say it was because of performance, but that's not true, because I was making sure to do the best I could for, my best friend, because, he's one of the managers. And so I immediately texted him, and eventually ended up getting it out of him that he ended up saying that my testosterone was a problem. I don't know what he meant by that. I never got into it with anybody. I never yelled at anybody. I never screamed at anybody. I never fought anybody or anything. And like I'm still in shock talking about it, because it's just like it was so blindsiding. And so I went home and I cried in my bed, because I was just, it just felt like I'd been casted out from everywhere and everything, from every job. Just felt like I'd been casted out. Like I just said, I had those 2 episodes in my bed where I almost lost my life. And so I had to fight, I had to fight to get rid of my illness by way of, supplements, gummies, that type of thing. And then I met my wife, and thank God I don't have to, I ended up not having to take medication anymore. But I think what had happened was, so, I'm really serious about her medicine. I try my best to get it. And whenever, and she's been to the hospital a couple times because we've been struggling so hard. And so, I don't take that lightly. Whenever my hours start getting messed up, or this dumbass fucking Workday app quits working and now my money is in question, like I don't take that lightly. And they know I don't. But nonetheless, I don't know. But New Year's Eve, um, I was in my bed, and like I just read, I prayed a little differently than I normally do. I directly called out to, the spirit realm. I directly called out to him, them being God and Jesus. And I handed my soul over. It was a really, really big, long prayer. And then towards the end of it, I felt something come over my body that was just complete peace and tranquility. And like I've never felt that peaceful in my life. And then, so that night, I actually ended up writing a song, and it will be on the project, but it's one of the best songs I've ever made, if not the best. And so over the next couple days, I was so shocked that that actually worked that I kept calling out and calling out, and it's been working. Last night I actually asked him because my blood felt really hot. It just felt really hot, so I felt really anxious. And I asked him to cool my blood down. And sure enough, I said amen, and maybe a couple minutes later, my blood cooled down to where like it all went down to my feet. The heat did, and then it just like went away. I call out whenever I'm in turmoil or angry, and it never fails. However I'm feeling, whatever negative emotion or state that I'm in, all I gotta do is call out the right way, and they cure me. Now, I was an atheist whenever I was in middle school, and so that so just to let you know, I haven't always been like that, but it's been working. And just a second ago, tonight actually, something came over me and told me to start packing my bags. Like something came over me and told me to just start packing my bags with all the essentials, all the clothes that I actually, need, and medicine, and all that type of thing. And I looked up why that feeling came over me and why seemingly subconsciously I started doing that. And it said that, one second. It said that packing bags when feeling a strong calling may symbolize a subconscious preparation for a significant transition or a spiritual journey. This physical action may be your inner self way of processing the idea of change, readiness for a new chapter, or release of old attachments you align your spiritual faith with. And the first time I searched it, it said something else, but nonetheless, pretty similar to what that just said. But now I have this idea of just leaving and going and looking for gigs and not coming back for a little bit. I just redid one of the parts of my last song that I was starting, there was some audio clicking going on, some interference, and so I just redid that. Pretty sure it sounds good. Just got to edit it, and then the last song on the project will be done. It's an 8 minute and 30 seconds long song. And then I guess I'm gonna leave for a second and just try to make all this shit happen. But yeah, so that's kind of what's been going on lately. Hopefully everything will be alright. Obviously I feel like it will. But yeah, just wanted to share that with y'all. If you're going through something, turn off everything. Lay in your bed, close your eyes. Take a deep breath and call out directly to them. And if you have a sincere heart, I think it'll work out for you. But I think I covered everything. But I appreciate the few of y'all that have been taking the time to watch me and listen to me and support my artwork. Somebody just told me to have, somebody just wished me good luck on my audition. I appreciate that. And guess it's time for a new chapter. I do plan on finally finishing this fucking last song tonight, and then I'm gonna schedule the release, and then tomorrow I'm gonna try to wake up as early as I can and just go out and look for gigs. Just go out and look for gigs. I got my speaker, I got my piano, I got my piano case, I got my business cards, and we're gonna see what happens. But I appreciate y'all. And Happy New Year.